Hey, this is Dr. Berry, family physician, and I'm so excited to make this video for you. Over 4 billion people on this planet suffer from fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and there is now a proven diet that will reverse fatty liver disease, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So many people think that fatty liver disease, either in children or in adults, is just something that you're cursed with. You have no choice in the matter. You're just stuck with that. Currently, 40% of obese children have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It is the most common chronic liver disease in children now. Huge deal. And so I'm so excited to bring you this information that's going to help you either reverse your fatty liver disease or to help your child reverse their fatty liver disease with this proven technique. As you may know, the typical advice for fatty liver disease is to move more, eat less, restrict your calories, or burn more calories than you take in. This is the standard advice for people with fatty liver, although it almost never works. There's no research to back that recommendation up. It fails in 99% of people who try it, because basically what they're telling you to do is to starve yourself for the rest of your life. And no mammal can do that, not even you. There's no drug currently that is FDA approved for the treatment of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and there's not a drug on the horizon. And so this is excellent information for you to be able to reverse your fatty liver disease now. Most healthcare providers who take care of patients with fatty liver disease, either children or adults, have become so flustered by the lack of results that their recommendations get that bariatric surgery, gastric bypass surgery, is quickly becoming standard of care for people with fatty liver disease, and that is terrible. In this video, I'm going to explain to you a method that is not only clinically proven in thousands of clinic hours by both me and other low-carb doctors, but now has research-based proof to show that it works. So if you know someone with fatty liver disease, whether it's an adult or a child, then please consider sharing this video with them. You're welcome to share this video in your groups, on your page, anywhere, Instagram, Twitter, I don't care. As long as we can help the 4 billion people on this planet who suffer from needless fatty liver disease, that's my goal. Now, with over 4 billion people on the planet suffering from this dangerous condition, fatty liver, you would think that we would have multiple randomized trials that were well performed in humans to figure out what's causing this and to reverse it. Well, surprise, surprise, there's not one until now. The University of Alabama at Birmingham researchers have done a study, and and most of this video is going to be about that study and what it showed, and then how you can immediately take what they found in this study and what I found in my 20 years of clinical research or clinical experience in the clinic, and you can apply that immediately to your life to start to reverse your fatty liver. So what they did is they took 32 children, human children, not rats, not dogs, not pigs, humans, between the ages of 9 and 17 years of age, who had verified fatty liver disease. Now, this is not from alcohol or acetaminophen overdose. This is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease just from their diet. All of these children were overweight, if not obese, because those go hand in hand in kids. They randomized these kids to either eat a low-carb diet or a low-fat diet. The low-carb diet, the macros broke down as 25% carb, which I would consider not low-carb enough, 25% protein, and 50% fat. That's what half the kids got randomly. And then the other half of the kids got a low-fat diet, which consisted of 55% carbohydrates, 25% protein, and 25% or 20% fat. So basically, it was a low-carb diet versus a low-fat diet. Now, which one do you think did the most and reversed the most of the fat out of these kids' livers? You might be surprised, so watch this to the end and find out. So they did this for 8 weeks, and for the first 2 weeks of the study, they actually bought the groceries for the kids. All the kids and their family had access to registered dietitians. They got routine appointments with the dietitian. They got all kinds of education on what to eat, what not to eat. They gave them meal plans, and so they made it very clear on the high fat diet or the low carb diet. This is what you need to eat. This is what you need to avoid. And then also the same goes for the low fat diet. They said this is what you need to eat. This is what you need to avoid. And they made it very clear to both groups. And remember, these kids were randomized into group A or group B. Nobody knew where they were going to wind up. So there was no researcher bias that was able to get into this study like it is so easy for the bias to get into observational studies. Both groups, and then so for the first 2 weeks, both groups were given groceries. One group was given low carb groceries, the other low fat groceries. And then for the last 6 weeks, they bought their own groceries, but they still had access to the registered dietitians explaining to them what they need to do. At 4 weeks in, they did a food diary, a 3-day food diary, so that the researchers were able to tell, yep, this kid's still on track. They're still eating the proper diet that we've set them up. We've randomized them to eat. Both groups were told, and this is very important, both groups were told to avoid junk food, to avoid just processed crap and carbs, to avoid soft drinks. And so both groups were avoiding junk food. That's very important. So even the low-fat group, they weren't eating the standard American crap. They were still eating whole fruits, whole vegetables, and lean meats. You got that? So that's very important because a lot of people say, oh, well, yeah, if you compare low carb with real whole food to somebody eating the standard American junk, obviously that's going to do better. But both of these groups were eating real whole foods. So now let me tell you what this study actually looked at, what it measured. And so they took all these measurements I'm about to tell you at baseline before the study began, and then they took all these again at 8 weeks after the study finished, and they did these studies in both groups. So in both groups, before the study started, they got a magnetic resonance imaging of their abdomen. This is by far the gold standard to look at fatty liver. Ultrasound's good, but MR is better. And so both groups got an MR of the abdomen looking specifically at fatty liver, how much fat was in their liver. Both groups got a DEXA body composition scan, both at the beginning and at the 8-week mark. Both groups got lab work, including a fasting glucose, a fasting insulin, a lipid panel, and an HSCRP. And the results of that are also recorded in the conclusions of this study, which is very interesting. They both groups had their HOMA-IR, or it's a calculated measure of insulin resistance, calculated at the beginning and in 8 weeks. And then they had their resting energy expenditure calculated at the beginning and in 8 weeks, because the second big point about this study is that there was no calorie restriction in either group. What they did is they did an REE, and they tried to figure out for this kid how many calories did they need today to maintain their weight. So there was no calorie restriction. This is enough calories, this is the calories you were eating before, this is the same amount of calories, and the calories were the same in both groups. So there was no calorie restriction in either arm, hugely important for the conclusions of this study. So, you with me so far? Okay, now let's talk about what the results of this study were. And I think they're exactly what I expected them to be, but I think many healthcare providers and many parents and many people who suffer from fatty liver will be blown away by the findings of this study. So, at the end of the 8-week study, when they crunched all the data, here's what they found. The low carb group lost 2.4% of their body fat. The low fat group lost 0.4%. Okay? The low carb group lost 5.5% of their total fat mass in their total body by DEXA scan. The low fat group lost 0.1%. Okay? Got that? Now here's the biggie. For liver fat, the low carb group lost 32% of their fat in their liver. 32%. A third of the fat in their liver was gone after 8 weeks of a low carb diet. And this diet, in my opinion, it was a lower carb diet. It was nowhere near a keto diet or what I would even consider a low carb diet, but still it was a relatively low carb diet. How much liver fat did the low fat group lose? 1%. So once and for all, we can put to bed the myth, the lie, that eating fat will make you fat or eating fat will cause fatty liver. It does not work that way. A low-carb diet removed 6 times as much fat as the low-fat diet. So, I mean, there's just no way. Now, both groups, what about, you say, oh, but I bet the low-carb group lost some muscle mass, right? Both groups held their lean muscle mass or their lean body mass the same through the entire study. The DEXA scan picked up no change in muscle mass. So no, the low carb group did not lose muscle mass. The low carb group had a significant reduction in their liver lab work. Their ALT and their AST were significantly lower than the low fat group at the end of this study. The low carb group had a significant reduction in insulin resistance by the end of this study. The low fat group did not. The fasting insulin levels, the lipid panel, and the CRP were stable for 8 weeks in both groups. Neither the low fat or the low carb group really was affected with those labs in mind. Keep in mind, both groups got the amount of protein they needed to hold their weight and the amount of calories calculated to hold their weight. So this was not calorie restriction. The low carb group just ate fewer carbs than the low fat group. That's the only difference. This is the first randomized trial to ever be done that I know of in the world about low carb diets and fatty liver. I think that if they had done an even lower carb diet, they would have seen even more stunning results. But this is a great leap forward for everybody in the world, all 4 billion of you who suffer from fatty liver disease. So once again, let me sum up the findings of this study. I want you to listen very carefully, and this is one of the reasons I need you to share this video, because this is not equivocal at all. This is very cut and dried in this study, and there wasn't just a tiny 1.18% difference. These are big differences, okay? So the low-carb group lost more body fat by about 4 times as much as the low-fat group. The low-carb group lost 6 times as much liver fat as the low-fat group. Huge difference. Both groups maintained their lean body mass and their muscle mass on the DEXA scan. The low-carb group had no signs of inflammation that the low-fat group didn't have. They had no signs of any kind of disease that popped up. And again, their lipid panel, their total cholesterol, their LDL, their HDL, their triglycerides, stayed the same from the beginning of the study to week 8. It had no effect on their lipid panel, whether they were low carb or low fat. And that's a huge deal. So once and for all, calorie restriction, portion control, calorie deficit, none of that is going to help you reverse your fatty liver disease. A low carb diet is the way to reverse fatty liver disease. I think this research study pretty much puts it to bed. Now, this research has been presented as a poster at a recent American Diabetes Association event, and it has been accepted for publication in a peer-reviewed journal. I have a full copy, but you can't get a full copy as of the making of this video, but as soon as it's accepted and published in the peer-reviewed journal, I'll be able to post a link to the full study. And I want you to share this video to the heavens, because there are so many people whose doctor is still telling them, just move more and eat less. That's all we got. It hasn't been proven to work, but that's all I can tell you. I don't know. Join Weight Watchers and join the gym. Stop giving that terrible advice, healthcare providers and patients. Stop listening to that. Say, wait a minute, is there a study? Because now you've got the study. All right. Now, I've got 4 other fatty liver videos on this channel already, because that's what a big deal it is. So I'm going to put a link here and here at the end of this video, so you can, if you want to learn more about fatty liver or even fatty pancreas, you can click one of those links and see more about that. Please subscribe to this channel so that every time new research like this comes out, you'll be one of the very first to know, and click the little bell right beside the subscribe button so that you get a notification, okay? This is Dr. Berry. I'm so happy to make this video, and I'll see you next time.